The girl was crying when Sergeant First Class, retired Dale Morrow first noticed her. That wasn't unusual exactly. The Veltian Transit Hub on orbiting station Kessara was the kind of place where people cried. Merchants argued. Dock workers shouted in 7 languages simultaneously. The smell of something frying in recycled fat mixed with the cold antiseptic sting of the air recyclers, and the whole place hummed and buzzed and rattled like the inside of a machine that had never been properly maintained. Dale had been sitting on his duffel bag for 3 hours, waiting for the connecting shuttle to whatever mining platform had agreed to take on a human laborer who was 52 years old, had a bad left knee, and apparently possessed no skills that any employer in the interstellar commerce zone found remotely interesting. The Veltian exchange hadn't been his first choice of destinations, or his fifth. But when the settlement money from 22 years of military service runs out faster than expected, and when you've discovered that the Transition Assistance Office on Earth uses the phrase opportunities in the outer systems as a polite way of saying, we have nothing for you here, you end up in places like Kessara. He was drinking something that had been sold to him as coffee and was probably not coffee, watching the crowd move past him in waves when he saw the girl. She was small, even by the standards of the Caravel, the avian-adjacent species that made up about a third of Kessara's transient population. She was small. Her plumage was the pale gray-blue of a young bird, not yet the deeper colors that adults wore, and her secondary wing feathers were still coming in, giving her silhouette a slightly unfinished quality, like something that had been sketched rather than completed. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old in whatever Caravel reckoning applied. She was sitting on the floor beside a support column about 20 meters from Dale, her knees pulled up to her chest, her crest feathers flat against her skull, a distress signal that even Dale, with his limited xenobiology, could read clearly. And she was crying. Not making noise about it. That was the thing. She was crying the way children cry when they've been crying for a long time and have run out of the energy to make it dramatic, steady, quiet, exhausted tears sliding down the soft gray feathers beneath her large amber eyes. Nobody was stopping. The crowd flowed around her like water around a stone. Merchants glanced and looked away. A pair of Veltian security officers walked past without breaking stride. A group of Terrak traders in their environmental suits gave her a wide berth, presumably because a crying alien child was not their problem. Dale watched for 2 minutes, watched to be sure there wasn't a parent somewhere nearby, momentarily distracted, watched to see if anyone else was going to step in. Nobody did. He picked up his duffel bag, his coffee-adjacent beverage, and his bad left knee and walked over. He crouched down in front of her, which put him roughly at eye level. The Caravel had forward-facing eyes, unusual for avian-derived species, and hers were currently fixed on the middle distance in that particular way that said, I have decided not to see anything right now. Hey, Dale said. She didn't respond. He tried the 3 words of Caravel he knew, which were hello, sorry, and where is the bathroom, none of which seemed particularly applicable. He switched to Standard Galactic, which most species in the Commerce Zone learned to a functional degree by the time they were old enough to travel. Are you lost? A long pause. Then very slightly her crest feathers shifted. Not up, not a positive signal, but a fractional movement that meant she had heard him. Are you hurt? Another pause. She shook her head, a small motion barely perceptible. Are you waiting for someone? This time the pause was longer, and then slowly she looked at him. Really looked at him, amber eyes focusing, taking him in. He knew what she was seeing. A large human male with a shaved head going gray at the temples, a jaw that had been broken twice and reset imperfectly, wearing clothes that had been washed too many times, and a jacket with a patch on the left sleeve that said 17th Expeditionary in script too small for most non-humans to read. He watched her process him, He watched the moment she identified human in her mental taxonomy. Her expression shifted. Not fear, something more complicated. Uncertainty layered over curiosity, layered over what he could only describe as a kind of desperate, provisional hope. "I was waiting for my uncle," she said. Her standard galactic was careful and precise, the kind of accent that came from learning a language formally rather than from immersion. "He was supposed to meet me at Gate 7. I have been here for—" She consulted something on a small band around her wrist. 4 hours and 19 minutes. 4 hours. The child had been sitting on the floor of a transit hub for 4 hours. "Does your uncle know you're here?" Dale asked. "He was supposed to," a tremor in her voice quickly controlled. "I sent him 17 messages. The first 3 were delivered. The last 14 have not been." Something cold moved through Dale's chest. He kept his expression neutral. "What's your name?" "Sevri." She said it matter-of-factly, the way children say their names when they're concentrating on not crying. "Sevri Velcharian, daughter of Ameth and Lyris Velcharian. Currently a ward of the Chiral Reunification Authority, temporary designation 477. She recited this last part in a different register, flatter, practiced, like something she had memorized and repeated until it lost its meaning. "Ward," the word landed with a weight Dale recognized. "Sevri," he said, "my name is Dale. I'm going to sit down here with you for a minute if that's all right." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she moved slightly sideways along the base of the column, making space. He sat down on the floor beside her, put his duffel bag between his feet, and took a sip of his not coffee. "What happened to your parents?" he asked gently. "The Vortian collapse," she said, just that he didn't push. He knew about the Vortian collapse. 2 years ago. A cascading failure in a chiral colony system that had left 40,000 dead and 3 times that number displaced. It had made the news on Earth for about a week before something else replaced it. They sat in silence for a moment. The crowd moved around them, indifferent. "The Reunification Authority," Dale said. "They're the ones who arranged for you to travel here. My uncle Velshari submitted a petition to take guardianship of me. It was approved 11 weeks ago. I have been in a transit facility since then. Today I was supposed to arrive here and go with him." She paused. "He has a home. He said it has a room for me. He sent me a picture of it. It is blue." The way she said "it is blue," with a careful steadiness that was doing a great deal of work, made Dale's throat tighten. "Okay," he said, "let's figure out what's going on." Part 2, The Dog and the Market. The Velshan security office on level 3 was staffed by 3 officers who made it clear within approximately 45 seconds that a missing uncle and a stranded chiral child were not, in their assessment, a Velshan security matter. "The child is a ward of the Chiral Reunification Authority," said the officer behind the desk. A broad-shouldered Velshan male with the characteristic ridge structure of the Kesara regional subspecies. His universal translator rendered his voice in a flat, affectless tone that may or may not have reflected his actual attitude. Any issues with her transit must be resolved through the authority's regional office. "Where is the authority's regional office?" Dale asked. "Level 9, administrative block. They close at 3rd bell." Dale checked the station time on the wall display. It was currently 2 bells and 40 minutes. "What happens to her if I don't make it to the office before they close?" The officer looked at Sevri with the expression of someone being asked to account for a weather system. "She would remain in the transit area until the office reopens at 1st bell tomorrow." "Alone?" "We do not have facilities for—" "I understand," Dale said, in the tone he had perfected over 22 years of dealing with logistics officers, supply sergeants, and military bureaucrats of every stripe. The tone that said, "I am not arguing with you. I am simply making sure you understand that I am aware of exactly what you are telling me. Thank you for your time." He turned, put a hand lightly on Severi's shoulder. She didn't flinch, which he took as a good sign, and they headed for the elevator to level 9. They made it to the Reunification Authority's regional office, with 14 minutes to spare. The office was staffed by a single Chiral clerk who was very clearly winding down for the day and was not pleased to see them. She was perhaps 45 years old in Chiral terms, with the deep bronze-green plumage of a mature adult, and the way her crest settled when she saw Dale communicated a specific kind of territorial skepticism that required no translation. "This child is under your agency's care," Dale said, placing Severi's travel documents on the desk. The girl had produced them from a small bag she wore across her body, organized with a neatness that suggested she'd been told, firmly, to keep them safe. "Her designated guardian hasn't appeared. I need you to locate him." "Sir, I can take the child." "I'd like you to locate the guardian first, please." The clerk's crest flattened slightly. She looked at Severi. Something moved behind her eyes. "What is the guardian's name?" "Velshari Velcharian. He was supposed to meet her at gate 7. The clerk typed, waited, typed again. A longer pause. "There is a record," she said slowly, "of a Velshari Velcharian in our system. He submitted the guardianship petition." She stopped. "But," Dale said. The clerk looked at Severi again, back at Dale. There was something in her face now that hadn't been there before, a reluctance, and beneath it something worse. "Mr. Velshari Velcharian passed away 6 weeks ago," she said quietly. "A respiratory complication." The notification to update the guardianship file was apparently not processed. The child's transit was not canceled. The silence that followed lasted exactly long enough for Severi to understand what had been said. Dale didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the clerk, giving the girl a moment. He could hear it anyway, the small, sharp intake of breath. The sound a child makes when the thing they were afraid might be true turns out to be true. "All right," Dale said. His voice came out level. "What happens now?" "The child will be returned to the transit care system, pending reassignment of." "The transit care system," he said, "is a room on level 6 with 18 other children and 2 staff members. I checked. She's been in the transit care system for 11 weeks. He paused. "What are the options?" "I don't understand what you're asking." "I'm asking what the options are. What can be done? I'm asking you to help me understand what happens to her." The clerk looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at Severi. Severi was not crying. She had gone very still, the way animals go still when they're trying to make themselves small, and her amber eyes were fixed on the middle distance again, and her crest feathers were flat against her skull, and she was holding her small bag of documents against her chest with both hands. The clerk made a sound, not quite a word in any language the translator caught, and started typing again. More urgently this time. Part 3, 47 minutes. What followed was 47 minutes of the most concentrated bureaucratic combat Dale Morrow had engaged in since the time he'd spent 3 days arguing with a procurement officer over replacement parts for a vehicle that had technically been logged as a discretionary asset rather than essential equipment. He was good at it. He'd had a lot of practice. He learned the Chiral Reunification Authority's emergency contact protocol. He learned which forms needed to be filed for a temporary welfare hold versus a permanent reassignment. He learned that the authority had a regional advocate, a Chiral social worker named Velmiri who was technically off duty but could be reached on her personal comm. And he learned this by asking the clerk, very politely, whether there was a regional advocate and whether she had their contact information. The clerk called Velmiri. Velmiri arrived, slightly out of breath, 17 minutes later. She was a small woman, younger than the clerk, with warm amber plumage and quick, attentive eyes. She took one look at Severi, sat down beside her, and said something in Karaval that made the girl's crest feathers rise slightly, just slightly, for the first time since Dale had met her. Then Eerie looked at Dale. "You are not this child's guardian," she said. It wasn't accusatory. "Just clarifying." "No," Dale said. "I'm a human who found her sitting on the floor of level 2 for 4 hours. I was waiting for a shuttle." "You missed your shuttle." He had, in fact, missed his shuttle. The mining platform connection had departed at second bell. He'd had a vague awareness of this at some point around the 43rd minute of the form's process, and had decided it was not the most important thing happening right now. "I'll sort that out later," he said. Velmiri studied him for a moment. Then she said, "What is it you want for this child?" "I want her to be safe," Dale said. "I want her to be in a real place with real people who know her name, not in a transit room. I want someone to figure out if there's any other family. And I want her to have somewhere to sleep tonight that isn't a level 6 holding room." Velmiri was quiet for a moment. "Those are not small things." "No," Dale agreed, "they're not." Velmiri arranged for Sevri to be placed in what the authority called an emergency welfare companion residence, which was a formal way of saying a short-term housing unit run by a licensed Karaval family who took in displaced children while permanent placements were arranged. It was a real apartment, on level 4, with a window. She also began the process of searching Sevri's family records for additional relatives, a search that she acknowledged could take several days. While Velmiri worked, Dale and Sevri sat in the waiting area outside the office. Someone had found a beverage dispenser, and Sevri was holding a container of something warm that she wasn't drinking, just holding, the way you hold something warm when the warmth itself is the point. "My uncle's room," Sevri said after a while. "The blue one, he sent me a picture of it." "I know. I kept the picture." She touched her bag. "I saved it when I got his first message. It was in the 3rd message. I save pictures of places." "That's a good thing to do," Dale said. "My mother used to say that if you save pictures of places you want to go, eventually you will find yourself in one of them." She paused. She had a lot of pictures. Dale didn't say anything. Sometimes there was nothing to say that was better than silence. "You are very large for a human," Sevri said after a moment. He almost laughed. "People tell me that. On the transit, the Veltian children called humans dogs, because of the way you walk, on 2 legs but with your weight forward." She tilted her head slightly. "Is that offensive?" "Not particularly. They said it like it was supposed to be offensive. Most insults only work if you let them." She considered this with the seriousness that children apply to information that seems important. "The Veltian children on the transit were not kind," she said, carefully, in the tone of someone making a factual observation rather than a complaint. "Kids can be rough." "They broke my picture," she said. "I had a printed picture of my mother. It was in my bag. When I was sleeping, they went into my bag and they tore the picture. It was the only one I had." She paused. "That was 3 weeks ago." Dale was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry," he said. "I still have the image in my memory band," she said, "but it is not the same as a picture you can hold." "No," Dale agreed, "it's not." Part 4, The Favor. Velmiri found them at 4:30 bell, looking slightly frazzled but purposeful. "The companion residence is confirmed," she said. "The family is Karaval, the Velhari family, 2 adults and 1 child, level 4. They are experienced welfare companions, good record." She looked at Sevri. "You will have a room, your own room." Sevri's crest feathers rose again, more this time. "I have also begun the family search," Velmiri continued. "I found 3 additional relatives in the system. 2 are in the outer Karaval territories and may not be reachable in the short term. 1, she paused, and something shifted in her expression. 1 is a maternal aunt, Velsari Velcharian. She is on record as having expressed interest in guardianship at the time of the original petition, but was listed as secondary to the uncle. Is she reachable? Dale asked. I sent a preliminary contact message 20 minutes ago. I have not received a response yet. Velmiri's tone was careful, the tone of someone managing expectations without extinguishing hope. Severi was listening to all of this with the focused attention of someone who has learned that conversations about your life can stop including you if you don't pay close attention. Can I ask you something? She said to Velmiri. Of course. When you find my aunt, if she says yes, how long until I go there? Velmiri was quiet for a moment. It could be several weeks. There are processes. Severi absorbed this. Will I stay with the Velhari family while I wait? If all goes well, yes. And if it doesn't go well? Velmiri met her gaze steadily. Then we find another path, but we will not leave you without a path, Severi, that I can promise you. Severi looked at her for a long moment. Then she gave a small nod, the Caraval equivalent Dale had come to understand, of I hear you and I choose to believe you. Then she looked at Dale. Will you come with me, she asked, to the Velhari family just to see where it is, and then you can go find your shuttle. Dale checked the station schedule in his head. The next connection to the mining platform was at second bell tomorrow morning. He had roughly 9 hours. Yeah, he said. I'll come with you. Part 5. The Print Shop ON Level 4. The Velhari family lived in a unit on the residential side of Level 4, past the commercial district, in the section of the station that smelled less like recycled frying fat and more like someone had put effort into making it feel like a place rather than a facility. There were planters in the corridor with actual growing things. The lighting was warmer. The family, Ari Osh and his partner Ari Mean, and their daughter Sivri, who was perhaps 10 years old and possessed of a spectacular quantity of burnt orange plumage, met them at the door with the specific, practiced warmth of people who had done this many times and meant it every time. Sivri looked at Severi with the frank assessment of children meeting children. You're smaller than I expected, she said. You're louder than I expected, Severi said. Sivri's crest went up in what Dale had come to understand was amusement. I like her, she announced to no one in particular, and took Severi by the hand and began explaining the layout of the apartment with the authoritative energy of a very small and very confident tour guide. Ari Osh shook Dale's hand, a gesture he'd clearly learned for the benefit of human visitors, and said, "Thank you for bringing her safely." She brought herself safely, Dale said. I just walked alongside. Ari Osh looked at him with the particular expression that Dale had seen on the faces of parents and teachers and commanders across 22 years and several star systems. The expression that said you are being modest, and I am choosing to respect that rather than argue with it. He meant to leave after that. He'd seen the apartment, confirmed it was good, said goodbye. That was the plan. But Severi, in the process of touring the apartment under Sivri's energetic guidance, had stopped in the small room that was apparently to be hers and stood in the middle of it and gone very still. It was a small room, clean, a sleeping platform with a cover in soft gray-blue, a desk. A window, real, not a display, looking out at the interior light shaft of the station, which from this angle caught the station's artificial sun cycle and currently glowed a warm amber. It's not blue, Severi said. No, Dale agreed from the doorway. My uncle's room was blue. She stood there. He died before I got here. I never met him. My mother said he was kind. She stopped. I never got to find out. Dale leaned against the doorframe. I have his picture, she said. In my memory band, I have my mother's picture. I have my father's picture. She paused. But I don't have a picture I can hold of any of them. Something settled into place in Dale's mind. He'd passed something on level 4, coming through the commercial district. He'd noticed it the way you notice things without knowing why. "Give me an hour," he said. The print shop on level 4 was a small operation run by a Veltian woman with the efficient energy of someone who had been solving other people's problems commercially for a long time. Her name, the sign said, was Merchant Velkas, and she produced physical prints of digital images in 17 formats for 17 different species standard media preferences. Dale showed her the memory band interface specifications. She produced a reader for it without comment. He extracted the images, 3 of them, flagged as priority by Severi's careful file system, and asked for prints. "What size?" Velkas asked. "Whatever size a child can hold," Dale said. She looked at him over the top of the reader, made a decision about something. "I have a preservation coating," she said. "Additional cost makes them waterproof, tear-resistant." "Do that," Dale said. He was back at the Velhari apartment within 40 minutes. Severi was in the common area with Sivri, eating something, and she looked up when he came in with a small wrapped package. Velkas had wrapped them in a material that crinkled softly, with a seal on the top. "I said goodbye already," Severi said. "You came back." "I did something first." He held out the package. She took it carefully, looked at him. Then she opened it. The 3 prints slid out into her hands, her mother, her father. Her uncle Dale had found a public record image for him, the kind that appeared on official documents, formal and a little stiff but real. Real features, real face. Severi sat very still, with the 3 pictures in her hands, for a long time. Then she made a sound that was not quite crying and not quite something else. A sound that was the specific release of something held too tightly for too long, and she put her forehead down against the pictures, and her crest feathers rose fully for the first time since Dale had known her, spread wide in the chiral expression that his limited xenobiology database said meant "I am safe. I am held. I am not alone." Sivri, who was 10 years old and had apparently seen this kind of moment before, quietly put a hand on Severi's back and didn't say anything. Ari Mean, in the kitchen doorway, looked at Dale with an expression that needed no translation. Part 6, The Bench AT Gate 7. He left after that, said goodbye for the second time. Severi walked him to the door and held the 3 pictures against her chest and said formally, "Thank you, Dale Morrow." "You're going to be all right," he said. "You don't know that," she said. "No," he agreed, "but I think it anyway." She considered him. "Why did you stop in the transit hub? Everyone else walked past." He thought about it. The real answer, the honest one, was complicated. It involved 22 years of watching people not get helped and deciding at some point that you had to be the one who stopped. Because if not you, then who? But that was too long for a doorway. "You were sitting on the floor," he said, "and you'd been there a long time, and you needed someone to sit down with you." She thought about this. "On the transit," she said, "the children called humans dogs because of how you walk. They said it was an insult." She paused. "But my mother had a dog before I was born on Chiral Prime. She told me about it. She said it was the most loyal creature she ever knew. It would find you when you were lost. It would stay with you when you were afraid." She tilted her head, amber eyes steady. "I do not think dog is an insult." Dale felt something in his chest that didn't have a name. "Get some sleep, Severi," he said. "Safe travels, Dale," she said, very formally. Then she went back inside. He walked back through level 4, through the commercial district, past Velkas's print shop where the light was already turned down for the evening cycle. He found a bench near the elevator bank and sat down with his duffel bag, and thought about the fact that he had missed his shuttle and would need to rebook, and that his employment situation was now roughly where it had been at the beginning of the day, which was to say uncertain in the specific way that felt like standing at the edge of something without being able to see what was below. He was still sitting there when his comm unit chimed. He looked at it, an unfamiliar number, chiral prefix. He answered. Dale Morrow. The voice was chiraval, female, middle-aged, with an accent he couldn't place. The translator smoothed it into standard galactic with slight lag. My name is Velsari Velcharian. I received a message from a social worker named Velmiri regarding my niece Sevri. Dale sat up straighter. Yes, he said. The message said you found her, that you helped her. She was alone in the transit hub. Someone needed to. I have been trying to reach someone in the authority for 3 weeks, Velsari said. My petition was listed as secondary. I was told to wait. I sent messages. I was told to continue waiting. A pause. They told Velmiri I expressed interest in guardianship. That is not accurate. I didn't express interest. I told them I wanted my niece, that I was her family, that I was waiting for someone to tell me what I needed to do to bring her home. Dale was quiet. I am calling you, Velsari said, because Velmiri's message said you stayed with her for hours, and I wanted to speak to the person who stayed with her. She stopped. How is she? Is she well? Is she safe? She's with a good family tonight, Dale said. Velhari family on level 4. She has her own room. She has pictures of your sister. He paused. She's remarkable. Sevri is remarkable. A long silence. She is, Velsari said, and her voice had changed quality, thicker, softer. She is exactly like her mother. Velmiri is pushing the reassignment process, Dale said. With your petition upgraded to primary status, it should move faster. I think she's going to be all right. Because of you. Because of Velmiri and the Velhari family and your niece herself. He paused. I just sat down on the floor next to her. Another silence. I want to come get her, Velsari said. I have a home. I have been preparing a room. She paused. It is blue. Something moved through Dale's chest, vast and quiet and full. Tell Eerie that, he said. She'll make it happen. Part 7, Second Bell. He slept on the bench. It wasn't the worst sleep he'd had. In 22 years, he'd slept in vehicles, in trenches, in the hold of a transport ship during a 17-hour mechanical delay, on a hospital cot next to a man who snored loud enough to rattle the medical equipment. A bench in the level 4 corridor, with the lights dimmed to the station's night cycle, and the planter with the growing things casting a faint green smell into the air, was not bad at all. He woke at first bell, stiff in the left knee, and went to find something that was more definitively coffee than the thing he'd had the day before. At second bell, he was at gate 7 with his duffel bag and his rebooked shuttle ticket, and his bad left knee, and absolutely no employment waiting for him at the other end. He was thinking about this, about the particular arithmetic of 52 and running out in the outer systems, and what any of it added up to when his comm unit chimed again. A different number, local to Kesara Station. He answered. Mr. Morrow, a Veltian voice, official register, translated flat. This is Administrator Kelvar from the Kesara Station Operations Authority. I was passed your information by a social worker named Velmiri. Dale paused. Yes. I understand you have logistics and organizational experience, military background, extended service. That's accurate. We have a position in our Transit Coordination Office, Level 3. It involves, among other things, monitoring the transit population for welfare concerns and coordinating with the appropriate authorities. A pause. It was created recently, following an internal review of our response to unaccompanied minors in transit. Dale sat with this for a moment. Velmiri put you up to this, he said. A brief pause. She submitted a recommendation, yes. And the security officer I talked to yesterday. A longer pause. He is no longer stationed at the transit desk, no. Dale looked out at gate 7, at the flow of people, at the floor beside the support column where Sevri had sat for 4 hours and 40 minutes. Tell me about the position, he said. He missed his second shuttle too. Epilogue: The Blue Room. 6 weeks later. The message came through official Chiral Reunification Authority channels, marked for the attention of Kesara Station Transit Welfare Coordinator Dale Morrow. His title now, the ink still fresh on the appointment, and it contained two things. The first was a document, the official completion of the guardianship transfer of Sevri Velcharian to her aunt Velsari Velcharian, processed with what the authorities' internal notes described as unusual speed due to advocate prioritization. Below the official text, a handwritten edition in Chiral script, which the translation software rendered as, "Thank you, Velmiri, and please thank the human dog." The second thing in the message was an image. A room. Blue walls, the particular soft blue of Chiral sky at mid-morning, warm and open. A sleeping platform with a cover in light silver. A desk with a small lamp. And on the desk, 3 photographs in a small standing frame, slightly overlapping. A woman with the same amber eyes, a man with kind lines around his face, and a formal portrait of a Chiral male, stiff and official, but real. In the corner of the image, barely in frame, 2 small gray-blue feathered hands, crest feathers raised fully, were setting a 4th item beside the frame. A printed picture of a large human male with a shaved head going gray at the temples, sitting on a bench in a transit hub corridor, holding something that probably wasn't coffee. Dale kept the image on his desk at Transit Welfare Coordination. Next to his own small frame, which held a picture of Level 2, Gate 7, with its support column, the crowds flowing past. A reminder that sometimes all it takes to change the whole direction of something is one person who decides to sit down on the floor. And ===. Word count, words estimated runtime, ~65 minutes at 160 WPM.